And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. So, once again, by popular demand, she's back. And now, what I decided to do is every couple of weeks, we're going to have a segment called Hope and Wellness. Hope because I run the Hopeful Romantic podcast. Wellness because she's part of Totality Wellness. That's her clinic. Um, this is very interesting, right? Like I've been telling my audience from the beginning, I know my lane. I talk about relationships, you know, unity, things like that. I know my lane. So whenever I get approached with questions that are beyond my scope, I like to surround myself with people that I feel are knowledgeable, they have the educational background, they have the credentials to answer these questions. So again, I partnered with Dr. Raphael and I brought her on to the Hopeful Wellness podcast to answer some of these questions. And I've gotten some in my inbox. And like I said, I feel like these questions are just not in my realm to answer. I have opinions, but that's about it. Um, First and foremost, I want to introduce Dr. Raphael. Dr. Raphael, how you feeling? How's everything?
I'm feeling great. Thank you for having me today. I love coming on here and sharing my opinions and some professional, you know, information and sharing that with the people. So I'm so happy to be here and thank you for having me.
No, no problem. No problem. Trust me, it's my honor. Um, so one of the things I talk to people about, or I get in my inbox, are questions about mental health. I get questions about, children being LGBTQ. I get questions about depression, and I'm like, that's not my lane. So what I decided to do was bring you on, and what I wanted to know is if we go through some questions that I've gotten, if you can give the audience your opinion and basically let them know from the point of view of a professional, maybe how they can take the approaches they can take, what to consider when taking these approaches, what role culture plays, and any aspect that you feel comfortable addressing. All right. So with that, we're going to go with the first question, and that is all about what is dear doctor, what are some of the signs of depression we can look out for in our friends and family?
Yeah. So I'm glad that you mentioned culture because I feel like now in this day and age, we're realizing that people of color and marginalized people have different responses to depression. I think that people think that depression looks like a person that is sad and crying and staying isolating themselves, but I think it's deeper than that. And then even talking about depression in male versus females, right? So we have this understanding that men tend to hold things in and feel less than if they express that they're not doing well. So I think that depression, the main sign of depression is isolation. That's over culture, gender. When you feel that you are slowly moving away, or if you see a loved one slowly moving away, or not wanting to share, or not wanting to do the same things that they used to do, or if they're losing interest in certain things, right? We see that slow decline or that slow like separating from the normal, right? And I think that's the main sign of depression is isolation. And like I said, really it could look different. And I want to stress that because there's no one way that depression can look. It could be people that like you and I know I went through my spouts of depression and nobody could tell, nobody knew. Right. I put on a great face and then I would go home and be sad and cry myself to sleep. Right. So we don't want to say that this is how depression looks. I prefer just checking in on our friends and family, checking in on those people. And if they are isolating or you see them moving away, that is one major sign.
I think that you hit a very important point, especially amongst men. The check in on your friends. Some people just aren't okay and they're quiet about it. I can go by personal experience where prior to writing my book, prior to coming to like a better part of my life, I was I was like the life of the party when I was out having fun. Women were never a problem. It was always a good time with me. And it wasn't until one day talking to my sister that she looks at me and goes, Mike, maybe you're depressed.
Right.
And I decided, you know what? I don't know, but let me go look for some help. And I sought help and I went to therapy and I realized how deep a hole I was in and how hard I was trying to cover it. And every day it wasn't manifesting itself. It wasn't showing itself, I could say, outwardly, where people would be like, something's wrong with Mike. It was more so like my life was in a rut and I didn't understand why. And I wasn't reaching out to the necessary, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't reaching out for help. I wasn't expressing, because the bottom line was I could not possibly go through everything I had gone through in my life with my health and all these other things without having some kind of issue, without suffering some type of depression. Just the status of my life and the way I live it day to day with the situations that I come across. And it was funny because the minute I got the help, it was like a cloud left my brain.
Right.
A cloud, like it wasn't a storm cloud, just a light cloud that left my brain. And it opened me up to be creative, to love, to be loved. It opened me up to all these different avenues.
Right.
So I think that's especially amongst men.
Right.
Men, we don't check on each other. And as soon as somebody shows a little weakness, you make a joke, you call them a punk, as opposed to, yo, it's okay to cry, bro. I get it. You know, sometimes the world is a lot, you know?
Right. If you live in this day and age and you have no type of trauma or depression or anxiety, you're freaking superhuman. That's how I feel. Like, especially with this time that with COVID, I mean, we have to be checking on each other because some people aren't going through this time okay, you know?
Yeah. What do you say to people that are like, when you try to bring up the subject? I have some good friends, when we talk about it, they look at me and they're like, they don't have time to be depressed. They have children, they got day to day, they got work. Too many people relying on them to say that they're depressed. They don't acknowledge it. How do you let them know that it's okay, or like what would you suggest to talk to them about?
I mean, I think that it's in due time. I think that just lending that helping hand, just letting them know that, that you're there if they ever want to talk, that you're there if they ever feel like they want to express, their concerns. I don't think it's a good idea not to have time to be depressed. I don't think depression works like that at all. Not acknowledging it is one thing that could cause a deeper depression. And regardless if you have to do it for work or your children, it's going to come out in those spaces.
That's interesting. And you said something about this day and age and today, which kind of leads us into the next question. And we're going to talk about children. With the internet today and the exposure that children have to the media, to a lot of the world's issues, because now it's not just, when I was growing up, it was my town, maybe my local area, that's what I knew about. Now I'm finding out about a girl getting kidnapped across the country. Now I'm finding out about the border. Now I'm finding out about, and you know about everything that goes on. And you find out about George Floyd. And now you're exposed to everything as a child, right? Not to mention the conversation that you hear people have, adults have, and things like that. What approach should parents take as kids are exposed to the news media of the times?
I think once again, just being mindful of different cultures and religious values. I think that being honest, with your children. I think a lot of times, sometimes parents try to preserve their child's innocence, and it's completely understandable. However, these kids are very much knowledgeable. They get information sometimes before we do.
You're underestimating, right?
Right. So being honest with them, having them feel comfortable to come to ask you these questions, and not trying so much to protect them, but to give them knowledge that they need. I think a lot of Black and minority parents don't have that anymore. They can't preserve innocence because they have to teach their children how to handle themselves if they get pulled over. Like, that innocence is gone. So I think if we think of it in that sense of safety and protection, that we want our kids to understand what's going on, although we want to preserve their innocence, that's not the world we live in, So I think being open and honest with them, of course, addressing it in a sensitive way. We don't have to be specific about everything. There's ways that you could creatively explain things to your child. And if you don't know how to do that, then you can reach out to someone that could help you do that. You know, there's people in school systems, there's therapists, there's religious pastors, religious people that you could reach out to. I just think that the best approach is an honest approach.
I agree. I've always felt, I've always followed this actually with my own daughter, that the day she asks the question is the day she's ready for the answer.
Mm.
That's how I feel about it. Like whenever she's come to me with a question, I feel like that's when she's ready for the answer.
Yeah.
You know, and I also try to circumvent the media, and I try to kind of get ahead of certain stories that are coming, you know, or certain disasters that I may see. And I do ask her opinion, and I let her know that it's okay to have an opinion. It's okay to be upset about it. I've definitely raised her to be a fighter for the oppressed, like a voice for the voiceless. That's one of my things. But with her, she's very sensitive. So what I do is I talk to her in scenarios, not necessarily the actual event, but I kind of paint a picture for her and let her come up with the answer so that I'm not feeding it to her. So I may guide her in a direction. Obviously, I'm a parent that I may want her to go, but I also give her the freedom to formulate her or express her opinion.
Yeah.
You know, like there's things I keep telling my friends, if you think you are liberal, talk to a 14-year-old girl.
Right.
She will smack your liberal, like, yeah, liberal my ass. Let me show you what liberal is. And she will kind of speak you in circles. You're like, oh, wow. Because when you're watching the news as a grown up, you're looking at, Fox and MSC saying that. And you're like, no, and you're sticking sides. And that's what you think of conservative liberal. And then you think, let's say you think you lie on the left. And then you sit there and you talk to a 14-year-old girl. And you're like, oh, there's levels. You're left. You're like, I'm not ready for that. I'm old. This is how I grew up. This is what I saw. And this is what you're saying is acceptable. This is what you're saying your friends are going through in school. And I never saw that. So I don't understand it. And it's a lot of questions. And what I feel is that when you talk to your children, you actually end up learning a lot because of that. You end up learning a lot because of that. Because there's things, you'll hear parents, right? Like growing, I had this conversation the other day, so I could bring it up. I had a conversation with a friend. He's like, when I was growing up, there was no such thing as anxiety and all this bisexual and anxiety and stuff in school and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, yeah, that was the kid that was getting 30s on the test. That was the kid that was getting left back. Well, that's what we called it. You know what I'm saying? That's the kid that was in that special class because nobody understood what was going on in his life. That's how we treated that back then. Now, these kids get that anxiety out. They talk to people. They get the help, so they're not getting left back. You know what I'm saying? They're not going through a lot of the things. Don't get me wrong. They have their own set of problems, but they're not showing them in the way we showed them. They were there. We just didn't have the vision to see them because we thought, oh, that kid's just dumb. Oh, that kid. We didn't know what that kid was going through at home. I was one of those kids. Like I've never been bad in school, but I remember growing up and my house was in shambles. Wow. Economically, it was a mess. And I would go to school and now you have to face the kids getting bullied because they don't understand that you're wearing those clothes because you have no choice.
Right.
You have those holes in your sneakers because there is no option to get another sneaker. You know what I mean? And you're in a middle-class neighborhood, so everybody's making jokes. And, so I look back and I'm like, oh, no, I had that anxiety. I just couldn't verbalize it. I never talked about it. It manifested itself in my grades, where sometimes I could have probably been an honor student, but instead I was pulling C's. You know what I'm saying? There was times where, I was hungry in school. Don't get me wrong, my mom was a great mom, but there was times where I was hungry in school and people looking around like, oh my God, and they're munching away and they're looking at you like you're a scrub, not realizing, oh, he's not a scrub. He's going through some real shit. Some stuff that a kid shouldn't have to go through, And these are things that I feel like as adults, people don't recognize. They don't acknowledge it. Everybody wants to be tougher than the generation after them. You know what I'm saying? It's like people that listen to rap music. My rap music back in my day, man, shut up. The rap music today is just different. You haven't evolved. You know, and that's how I feel about mental health issues with kids. All right, the next one is a question, because I mentioned in the last question. It's a question that I got in my inbox.
Okay.
And the question is, they're dropping dimes. How do you approach a son or daughter you may think is LGBTQ? I grew up in a generation where that wasn't acceptable in my home. But I know time has passed, and I feel like I want to be a better parent to my child. How do I approach, or what stance can I take in case?
I would, if this was my client, I would kind of throw that question back at them. You know, when you were growing up, why wasn't it acceptable? How would it be handled, and how would you do it differently? But overall, so many questions come into my mind. Why is that a concern for that person? At this moment, why is it needed for that, for them to know exactly if this person is wherever they, whatever they want to be? Like, why at this time is that important for them? It doesn't mean that it's not. I just would like to understand why that was important at the time, because we all know that people come out when they're ready. And the worst thing you could do to someone is force their come out, and force them to talk about something when they're not ready to talk about it. And I think that's what could be done differently. I think that growing up back in the day, back when we were younger, I think there was no autonomy for adolescents. It was kind of like, you do what I say, you live how I want you to live, and no independence or interdependence, So for me, it's like, give them that space. The worry is what this person, might not live a good life. Is that what it is? Because that's not the case in society today.
Without adding to the question, I would be so inclined to think that again, I don't want to add to the question, but I just want to, I feel like they want to be a better parent. And I think maybe they're overcompensating for what they saw when they were younger. Maybe as a parent, I'll give you my example, right, with my daughter. And she's hilarious, because I am so aware of the situation, having worked with juveniles and in detention centers and group homes, and growing up and taking hundreds of seminars and hundreds of classes based on how to approach a child. And you're sitting there, and now you think you kind of want to put it all into work with your kid. You want to make it all work with your child. Like, okay, she's going to be the person that I see if all this works on. And when I talk to her, and she's very free about, like I said, she's very liberal, talking about this is that, these people in class. And I look at her and I say stuff like, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I'll say stuff like, if you were, I would love you, right? Like, and she just looks at me, like, nah, Dad, I like guys. You're good. Like, why are you approaching me? But in my mind, I'm like, I just don't want to be that parent.
Right.
I've seen that, and I've witnessed kids kill themselves, hurt themselves, go into deep depressions, not live the life they could have lived had somebody just been supportive. So I watch them, and I'm like, I don't want that for my child. So I always kind of lean that way. So I think when people ask this question, and again, I don't want to add to the question, I think that's more so that, or it can be, a lot of times you feel like your son or daughter is a reflection of you. And what you're doing is you're literally putting, people are going to think I raised a bad child, or people are going to think I did something wrong. So essentially, it's like, if you're reaching out and you're asking this question, it's not a reflection of who you are. And it's not a bad reflection of who you are. They just so happen to be what they are. Okay. The best thing, in my opinion, is to be supportive. Be there. Be a loving parent. Be the same. You know how they say universal precautions? Like when you wash your hands, you treat everybody like they might be infected. But I'm like, listen, if you treat every child the same, as in I love you with all the love that I have as a parent, whether they're gay, straight, LGBT, it doesn't matter what letter they fall under. If you love them to the best of your capacity, the best of your ability, they will be fine.
Right.
They will be fine, you know. And I feel like a lot of parents struggle, a lot of parents, family members, and again, it goes back to an older way of thinking.
It's their internal traumas that they had from their childhood, and it's being projected on their kid. And I do think that your kid is a reflection of you. So if your kid is homosexual, gay, whatever you want to call it, I don't care about that. I care more about how they're experiencing that. And if they're experiencing that negatively, that falls back on the parent for me, you know. And I agree 100%. I'm going to support this person. I'm going to let them know that this is, you know, I will be there no matter what. And I guarantee their experience would be not a negative, not a completely negative one. So I do think that parents that have those questions really need to not say that they shouldn't have those conversations with their child. Of course they should, but I think they need to reflect back on their experiences and how that affected them before they go into, you know, the saying, hurt people. Fix your hurt before you go into this situation, you know, trying to make this person better or not better, or whoever you want them to be.
I also feel like sometimes parents love their child too much. If that's hard to explain, if that's hard to believe. I feel like sometimes a parent sees what the road ahead is.
Yeah.
And they see some of the obstacles that they're going to have to go through. And they see what a lot of society still feels about these situations. And instead of supporting it and having their back and pushing them out and saying, hey, look, I got you. Whatever you face, I got you. They want to shelter them and protect them.
Yeah.
And they kind of feel like, no, I've seen mothers do it and fathers do it when somebody's dating somebody. You know what I'm saying? Or whenever. I've seen it in a lot of different scenarios where a parent will be like, no, not because I don't like that, but because I see what's ahead for you and how hard it's going to be. And I love you so much that I don't want you to have to go through that. You know? So there's a lot of different angles. I don't ever want to put parents in a situation where they're bad people, because it's more so like, for me, I feel like become knowledgeable in a situation. If that's what you feel is going on, do some research, become knowledgeable on the situation.
Yeah.
Talk to people, talk to professionals yourself. Because again, like you said, deal with it yourself before you could ever help them. You know what I'm saying? Work on your own issues. You know, and I still have a lot of people that I know that, homosexuality is a sin. There's still a lot of that. Man, I was surprised how much of that there still is.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And you're like, okay, like you're like, whoa, I didn't, you know, that's a conversation I thought we were past, you know? And they'll say stuff like, I'm good with it, but just keep it over there. And I'm like, that sounds a lot like what people were saying in the 1950s and 40s about black people.
Yeah.
Hey, I like them, but just keep them over there. You know what I mean? And I'm like, you would think, especially in the black community. You know, I have a good friend. He's a recording artist, and he talks about it all the time. He's like, the most hate he's ever gotten has been from the black community for being gay. You know what I mean? Because it's still a big stigma.
Yeah, we could go in all day on that, because I don't think it's a defense mechanism because of the brutalization that we experienced during slavery, and a lot of molestation and rape happened, and that pain has transcended, it has passed down through generations, and I think that is a defense mechanism, which is reasonable. You know, I understand that. I just think that we're at this point where we need to expand our perspectives.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next question. And I kind of wanted to throw a little twist to this because I want to ask the second part of the question. What are your thoughts on monogamy this day and age? You think there's a section of the internet that's really starting to push the
polygamous?
Yeah, the polyamory and the two different. They're starting to push that aspect.
Yeah.
Let's start there. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's something that's going to take hold and people are going to start understanding that just because of the state of marriage today, or do you think it's what are your thoughts on it?
I think to each its own. it's like for me to give my opinion, I really want to make sure I'm not being judgmental, because my personal opinion and perspective is I want.
Give that first. Give that first, and then we go into whatever you think.
Yeah, I prefer and desire a monogamous relationship. I think you attract what you want. You know, we spoke about that too, and that's my opinion on it.
That's fine.
I see the benefits. I hear what people say, the community part. You know, I don't have children. I have friends that have children, and it literally takes a village. I understand that. And I do want a village when I have children. I could understand the household. You know, we come from a lot of, like, even me being Haitian, our cultures and a lot of Hispanic cultures and other cultures are really family oriented. It's like we all sit together. We live in this one house, maybe aunts, uncles, cousins, everybody's living together and taking care of each other. That's very much different than having two partners. I think that if it works for you, then it works for you. I think that if it doesn't work for you, then don't force it. And I think that people that get into those type of relationships should really, really do the research and do the self-work that it would take. It would take a lot of selflessness to be in that relationship. And I'm not a selfish person by any means. However, that would be really difficult for me. And I wouldn't even fake the phone. So
I can lie to you. Listen, so check this out, right? As far as two women, when you think of the fantasy side of it, oh yeah, that sounds beautiful. But let me tell you something. No, that's two sets of people. I don't have two sets of nerves to get on. Right. I have one. Yeah, so I don't think I could deal with two women getting on my nerves, or two women like bouncing on me like that. Nah, it's cool. I talk to a lot of guys, and they when we talk about it, it's like they always tell you about the good part of it, right? Mm-hmm. What they don't take into account is there's a lot of bad involved. You know what I'm saying? When you mess up with two people. Mm-hmm. When you hurt feelings, you usually hurt two sets of feelings. You know what I'm saying? When you're sitting there acting like a jerk and you're not getting sex from both of them. You know what I mean? People think, oh, if I don't get it, I'm going to get it. No, that's a lot of times it's not how it works. A lot of times your attitude is very dependent on what you're going through. You mm-hmm. know what I'm saying? So it could be you can't shy away. You can't shy away from that. So I don't think it would work for me as well. Yeah. But like I said, I saw Dr. Umar. He's doing it with two women.
That was interesting. That was a sneak attack. I did not see that come in. But that's cool.
I guess that wealth and power situation affects that as well. I know plenty of religions that do it, and they have their reasons to do it, and they do it well, and it works for them. Hey, no power to them, like you said. Not for me. The other thing is, there's a big trend on the internet right now of men that are coming out that are posing the question. Why would I get married? What does a woman bring to the table?
Oh my goodness. Jesus.
They're really asking that question. Like,
I think that man needs to just kind of reflect on their relationship with their mother and their relationship with women. I mean, I'm not trying to be like rude, but if you don't see the value in a woman.
That's right. See, I'm very much, I always say I'm a feminist with chauvinist tendencies. So like, I see it how you see it. What I tell women is, if a man poses the question, walk away. If he poses that question, and they don't usually pose it like you would think. They're not blunt about it. On the internet, they are. Guys will look across and look at these young 20-something-year-old women who don't even know who they are yet, and say to them, "Well, what do you bring to the table?" They're like,
question,
and they basically leave with their coochie. So it's.
Or people say, "I bring the whole table." And then some men will feel like, well, dang, what you need me for if you got the whole table?
No. See, I think it's very close. I think when a man loves you, you are the table. Mm-hmm. When a man loves you, you are the table.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's not about what you bring, what I bring. It's you are the table. You're the reason why now I want to go whatever level I got to get to, whatever I want to provide, whatever I want to do. You're that basis of that. You know what I mean? Everything I've done for myself up until now is fine. You are the basis of what I want to do from today moving forward. I
Right.
see value in you. The minute a man makes you feel that way, or treats you, or says it to you, you no longer. He never saw value in you. He
Mm-hmm.
never looked at you as anything past what you are today with him. He put you in that box, that no long term, no future box, that just spend time with box.
Yeah.
And you need to understand that early, or else you're just going to be wasting your time. I was
Right.
talking on another podcast about how sometimes when a guy, see, he doesn't always come in an arrogant piece of shit when he does that. Sometimes he comes in exactly what you want.
Right. Yeah.
He looks the part, he talks the part, he makes you feel the part. It's in your mind, it's perfect, right? But he's actually letting you know, yeah, nah, I'm not. Because the day he didn't commit, he never committed. He's letting you know, yeah, you're amazing, but you're today.
And that's fine. For me, that's fine. But the part that's not fine for me on both parts are when there's manipulation and lying involved, right? And that's on the man side or one partner side. And then the other partner side, what, women, and I can speak for myself, tend to do is, well, I could change his opinion. I could show him that I am that person. There's nothing you could do. There's nothing you could do. There's nobody you could be that's going to make him change his opinion. And like for us, it's learning when and how to walk away. And I think it's so difficult for women sometimes because we're nurturers, we're, the glue, and we want to make.
Let me ask you this question. I was telling, and she got upset. I do a podcast with my sister, Maya Vibes. All right. We do the Hopeful Romantic podcast. And when I said that, sometimes women, and I was talking specifically about women, will paint a pretty picture in their head of what they want their life to look like. They insert this man, and even though he doesn't fit the picture, but because the picture's in their head, they try to make him fit into that picture. And when he disappoints them, that's when they're like blaming him. And I say, no, he's been showing you all along who he is.
Right.
And in the words of Maya Angelou, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them.
Believe them.
Believe them. They are who they are. And I feel like it's like putting a square hole in a round peg. You can try all day, and it may look like it, but it's not going to fit. It's not going to fit. And with that, we're hitting on around 30-something minutes. We're a little bit. What I did want you to do is I run across a lot of this. I've been dealing with a lot of heartbreak. Women that are dealing with some heartbreak. Yeah. And they'll call me, and, a lot of my advice is about time, is about healing. But I wanted to be more specific. But again, I know my lane. So I would like to go to an expert. What are some of some of your weekly tips on self-love? Can you give us a couple of tips on self-love that some people can do to kind of regenerate themselves, find themselves again, kind of build themselves back up?
Right. So I'm actually reading the book like for the second time. It's called 7 Weeks to Attract the Love of Your Life. I forgot the next title, but it's by a woman named Catherine. It has nothing to do with attracting someone else. It's all about fulfilling that love within yourself. And I feel like sometimes that we get so caught up in finding things that make us happy, we forget that we're in control of our happiness, right? So when it comes to self-care, I think that making space for yourself, right? We run around, we're taking care of work, we're taking care of family, we're taking care of people in our lives, and we forget a lot to take care of ourselves and to make space to take care of ourselves. So I would always encourage clients and myself to make time each day, if it's 5 to 20 minutes, time for you to sit with yourself, to do something that makes you happy, to reflect on your thoughts, to meditate, or whatever the case may be, to masturbate if that's what you want to do with candles and whatever the case is. But giving yourself time to be with yourself in a capacity that you haven't had, right? Or the same capacity that you would give to a loving partner, right? Or someone in your life. And holding on to that space, right? So a lot of times Like just last night, I, wanted to go out, but I dedicated 10 o'clock that I was going to do 30 minutes of a bubble bath and just sitting with a glass of wine and just chilling with myself. And no matter what came up, hey, you want to go here? You want to do that? Nah, I'm going on a date with Christina. So that's my time, right?
A date with Christina. I like that. That's awesome. Yeah.
Right. So making that time for yourself and sticking to it and not compromising it, because we put ourselves last a lot, Another thing is utilizing support. A lot of times I think, and I'm speaking a lot from my experiences and then my clients' experience, we push away support. We try to go through things by ourselves, and I don't need anybody, and I'm going to handle this on my own, when God is blessing us with people that are there for us. If they're not there for us tangibly, they're there for us emotionally and morally, even with you, Michael, like it's been times where I reached out to you and I'm like so grateful to know you and that I could have these conversations with you and I could be vulnerable and talk to you, and that for me is utilizing the supports in your life, right? Another thing is exploring the things you love, right? So, once again, it's kind of like I'm in this place of not waiting for happiness or not waiting for someone to come in and explore happiness. I'm like, I could do this right now. Like, I love to horseback ride. I haven't been horseback riding in almost a year. So this weekend, actually, I'm going to get a Groupon and I'm going to go horseback riding. Right? Because I love to do that. I also love to fish. I love to, skate, I roller skate, I like to bike ride. I think that we forget to kind of explore the things that we love.
Am I wrong in saying that you are trying to get to the point where lonely is bad, alone is good?
Yes.
Being alone is good. It's that lonely feeling you're trying to eliminate. And you're trying to understand that being by myself, I'm my own best company sometimes.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or they, like in Spanish, they're saying, mejor solo que mal acompañado. It's better off alone than with bad company. You know what I mean? And sometimes you have to understand that you dedicate that time to yourself.
Yeah.
Enjoy your moment. Let me tell you something. I teeter on that, where I got to the point where I enjoyed being alone so much that it was like, back when I was dating, my favorite part of the date was when the Uber got here in the morning.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I mean? And now I'm more like, now it's so funny because I'm able to do both. I'm able to enjoy my own company and I'm able to share it with somebody else. You know what I mean? So you want to kind of get to that point as well.
And the big thing for me too is I recently took a trip, to Maryland to be with my friend. And it was one of my things. I hate traveling alone. I hated it. It was like torturous for me. And like the whole idea of you're alone, not lonely. I sat next to this older guy and had the best conversation.
The people that you meet, if you ever, like, I've done this on many occasions where I've gone and just gone on vacation by myself. Yeah. And I've gone away and I love it. Mostly back then because I was doing wild shit. I didn't want people to see what I was doing. But when I would go away, the people that you meet, the conversations, the wildest conversations I've ever had were when I took a train from New York to Miami.
Oh, whoa. What was that, 24 hours?
It actually ended up being about 32 because it was snow and it was a problem. No, don't get me wrong. I don't recommend it because it was torture towards the end. But I met not only some of the weirdest people, but some of the most fascinating people.
Right.
I literally sat next to a guy. This might shy people away from doing it, but I literally sat next to a guy. Right? We talked. Oh man, super cool. Yeah, we'll link up. We hit Miami. Da 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 da. Only to get to Virginia and the freaking the sheriffs get on and take him off in handcuffs because he was a fugitive.
Oh my gosh.
The Martians got on and took him off because he was a fugitive, and they had the dog sniffing his.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, it's like he was dealing drugs or something. But it's not the safest thing to do. But there's resorts you can go to, there's places you can go to that are safe, and I highly recommend it. But you know what? If you don't do that, if you can't do that, go to the movies by yourself. Mm-hmm. Take yourself to dinner. Yeah, these are things that you have to learn being comfortable with your own skin.
To be happy. And that took a lot for me to learn. And I think I'm still learning that. but I'm in this place where I'm feeling myself. I'm feeling life. I'm like, my perspective is different. Excuse me. I have two more things that I do want to share. Do something that makes you happy every day. I find myself working a lot. I'm doing a 12-hour shift every Monday through Wednesday, and finding something that makes you happy, just like you're saying, taking yourself to dinner, having your favorite food, whatever the case may be, but making sure you go to sleep with a smile on your face, you know? Excuse me. And the last tip is, and this is what I'm currently working on right now, and I'm actually working on it with a few of my clients, is being
Present.
who you want. Well, yeah, being present, that's a forever thing, right? But the things that you want, be that thing, right? Or start facilitating that thing, right? You want a dependable person. Are you a dependable person?
Right.
You want an organized person. Are you an organized person? Those things that we crave so much, we want from our partners, but can we facilitate those things for ourselves?
Become what you are looking the universe to be. Absolutely. Work on that inch by inch, day by day, piece by piece, and build yourself. Oh, I love that. That's a great one. That's a great one.
Yeah.
I feel like people really need to dive into this self-love.
Right.
I'm gonna add one. I'm gonna add one, and you let me know if I'm off. Stay off the internet.
I feel like you'll be good.
Stay off the internet. Oh man. Stay off the internet. The one common thread I've seen across the board is the more hurt someone is, the more they try to project happiness on the internet. The more hurt you are. And I've gotten to the point where now I see videos and I'm like, damn, they're going through it. You know what I mean? They're going through it. And my point behind that is become happy first.
Yeah.
Work on that first before you try to project it. Be it first. Be it. I know that there's a lot of fake it till you make it, but be it first, man. Because unfortunately, we're at the age where so many people are well versed in the internet, and people see through it.
Yeah.
People see through it. So you gotta be the happiness that you want. Like you said, do something small that makes you happy, whether it's a bowl of ice cream.
Right.
You know what I mean? Getting your nails done.
Yeah.
It's something simple, but do it. Become that. And don't be in a rush. Don't rush the process. A lot of people, they rush the process. They're like, no, I want to be happy now. It's not happening like that. It's literally a building. Stone by stone, brick by brick. You're building yourself back up to who you need to be. And then and only then will you project that happiness. And once you do that, everything you need and want will come to you. Right. But and with that, I want to say thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your expertise. I look forward to doing this again.
Me too.
And I think that you have the ability to translate a lot of what's in these books and put it in, I guess, layman's term, put it in a digestible way that people could understand it and they can take it in. Because I think the average people, a lot of what they're intimidated in. They don't understand the concepts, and they don't want to be called something they don't understand, or they don't want to be judged based on something they don't understand. But once they understand it and it's digestible, now they can look at it and say, "Oh, okay, I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying." It's the difference between telling somebody you have halitosis. Somebody like, what? Oh, you have bad breath. Oh, okay, now I get it. I could do something about that. So it's just one of those things. But thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Hope and Wellness with Dropping Dimes and Dr. Raphael. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much and have a great one. Let's see.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.